This is one of those essays I'm going to have to urge everyone to calm down, sit back, and relax as I try to make sense out of all this. The college basketball season is over for 2024, and for the first time, both the men's and women's national championships caused a great deal of discussion, controversy, you name it. In the men's side, the University of Connecticut repeated as national champs, defeating the Purdue Boilermakers and a 7'4" super center, Zach Ekney, hope I said his name right. But the biggest story of that was from the women's side, and this leads into the essay. Iowa's Caitlin Clark, who is a premier scorer in her own right, has set many records with her prolific three-point shooting and just all-around game. And yet, on a recent podcast, I believe, still a legend in the sport, Diana Taurasi, made this comment that I think most people don't quite understand, and people feel that Miss Taurasi spoke this out of jealousy or whatever the motivation she thinks she had, when she mentioned that when Caitlin Clark, who is set to graduate and play in the WNBA pretty soon, as of this year, is going to find that it's going to be rough on the other side. Paraphrasing her, Miss Taurasi. Caitlin Clark will play with grown women, not the 18-year-olds. And I kind of agree with Taurasi's statement here, only on this one point. When Miss Clark graduates from Iowa, when she moves on and becomes a professional, yes, the game is going to be very different than in college. But may I remind you of those individuals and those college stars of yesteryear who also lost in national championship game. May I give you Hakeem Olajuwon losing to, of all teams, North Carolina State in 1983, and in 1984 lost to Patrick Ewing in Georgetown. And still, he had a successful pro career with the Houston Rockets. May I also introduce to you, and this is going to be the biggest surprise of all, Mr. Larry Bird. Lost in 1979 when he played for Indiana State to a Michigan State team that had the great Magic Johnson. But of course, Larry Bird, who was graduating that year, went straight to the NBA, played for the Boston Celtics, where I believe he had a fabulous career. Even though as a Laker fan, I shouldn't say that, but he had a fabulous career. Those are two examples out of many who have went to the national championship game and lost to a much better team. Let's just say that. I mean, no one would ever state that Patrick Ewing, when he was a freshman, lost to Michael Jordan when he was a freshman at North Carolina. But again, there's so many stories out of that, we're not going to have time to rehash all that. But I would say that Caitlin Clark is in that category where she went 2 times in a row to national championship and has come up empty. But does this take away the fact that her game is really something to watch, something to see? I am not so sure that she should be called the GOAT merely because she's a college athlete and she has yet to prove herself on the grandest stage of all, the pro game. Time will tell whether or not Miss Clark is truly a GOAT or just another great player. Time will tell. And that's all, even through all of our biases and prejudices about her game or just her ethnicity or whatever it may be. The fact of the matter is that she is a baller. She loves the sport. She loves the game. And isn't the purpose of all this is to get more young people involved in the sport, involved in the game? I remember back in the 1970s when the NBA was on pretty much life support, to paraphrase that. Pretty much life support. The games were 11:30 at night. All the small markets were winning NBA championships or going to the finals, and that was something good to see. But yet, the NBA lacked superstars after the retirements of Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, and the rest. So it needed new blood. It needed new superstars to come in and create talk and conversation. And this is where Larry Bird and Magic Johnson come in. Now, because of the interest of that 1979 NCAA championship game between the two, it stands to reason, and quite a good surprise to the NBA, that they will wind up in two of the most iconic franchises in the sport. Bird, of course, going to the hated Boston Celtics, while Magic Johnson went over to the LA Lakers. And yes, ratings-wise, when CBS had the NBA, the ratings were off the charts. The Boston Celtics versus the LA Lakers, there was no mention about the GOAT. There was no mention about any of the conversations we have today. It was pure Boston Celtics versus LA, Beantown versus La La Land. You can throw all the narratives out there about that rivalry alone, and we'll build a show off that. But that's what the NBA was focused on: the rivalry, the passion, the intensity, the individual players. Magic Johnson on one side, Larry Bird on the other. And I would think that Caitlin Clark, whoever she goes to, if they get someone, whoever it may be, WNBA could be headed towards that Indiana fever, I guess, against whoever they may draft, Angel Reese or anyone else, and create a rivalry out of that, or create a narrative out of that. Who knows? The WNBA marketing team, I'm sure, is on it right now. But that's just to say that Angel Reese is a great player, but Caitlin Clark is a best player out there, because the woman can shoot from over 20 feet or 25 feet away from the logo and make her shots. She could be double teamed and passes off to a teammate who passes to another teammate and gets an easy shot. She's not that selfish as I've seen some videos portray her to be, but she has a passion for the game, and she is very much having fun with the game. Of course, winning creates that. And there are those of us, casual sports fan, who are programmed to hate Miss Clark just because she's Caitlin Clark, right? I mean, that's what we all hate her for. She's a villain. In pretty much the same way we painted Angel Reese from LSU as a villain. There's no villains here. I think Angel described it perfectly on the court. On the court, there are no friends. You're a competitor. You play. That's funny that the men at one time, I believe, had that mentality. I don't know if they still have that mentality, all buddy with each other now, but still, that mentality is always there. When you're on the court, you're a competitor. Friendships out the window. Ask Magic Johnson when Isaiah Thomas gave him a shot across the cheek in the 1988 NBA Finals, and you'll find out there are no friends when you're playing for the big prize. Caitlin Clark's not a villain. She's no angel either, I know that. But she's someone that women's basketball should be proud to say, hey, this is a great player. And she's going to play in the pro league. Yeah, it's going to be tough for her, but her work ethic and her dedication to the sport should be able to get her into the big time. Advertisements are already flowing. NIL's doing its job. But Miss Clark is going to have many more endorsements coming down in the years, and it's only time will tell whether or not she is a superstar, someone who is in the level. I mean, she's already been great for ratings. Do you know that this recent women's Final Four was packed? The Cleveland Arena was packed. Very first time for a Final Four game. I mean, I've watched from the days when Cheryl Miller was at USC, and the McGee sisters, the McGee twins, and all the great players who went and played for women's basketball, Lisa Leslie, all the rest. Women's basketball has always had its individuals and has always had its great players on that side who've kept the sport going and have really enjoyed the sport. Even the women, Miss Woodard from Tennessee, Cheryl Swoops from Texas Tech, they were all great players, but this is the first time in a long time have we seen this interest be this great, because we all wanted to see Caitlin Clark lose, or we want to see her win. And I'll let you decide on which side of the fence you want to fall on. But I think that's what the interest was. And that's why Miss Clark is so much I want to say the word galvanizing, but she's so much an interesting figure, a woman that captures the attention of the entire nation. We want to see the story play out, right? We want to see how it's going to end. And for her, it ended the same way as I told you. Hakeem's ended with the University of Houston. Bird's ended with Indiana State. Now we'll see if Caitlin Clark has her story in the professional ranks to be one of the top players, at least not in Mount Rushmore, but in a number of great players who've already established themselves in that league. Time will tell. And all I can just tell you is that rather than hate on Miss Clark, let's support her, because supporting her means college basketball is alive and well, along with the other great players who are coming out this year. There are many great players that are going to come out, so let's support all the women who are going to come out, become rookies, and contribute to whatever teams they're going to be on. Women's basketball needs this boost, and so grateful for Miss Clark to do that. Let's see how the story plays out in the professional life. So, decided to just go audio today. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. You may have another idea, different thoughts about Miss Clark's story. All comments will be welcomed, and we will see how that plays out. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate this. Great time, and hope that everyone's doing well. So until we meet again, always in closing, take care.